In today's history class of class 10, we are going to discuss on nationalism in India. Chapter 2. In India, the growth of modern nationalism is connected to the anti-colonial movement. People began to discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with colonialism. The sense of being oppressed under colonial power was common to different classes, but each class and group felt the effect of colonialism differently. The Congress, under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, tried to unite these groups together within one movement. The First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. The First World War began in 1914 and created a new economic and political situations worldwide. Increasing taxes, increasing prices of food grains, heavy rains, etc. led to extreme leadership for common people. The forced recruitment in army caused widespread anger. After the war, Indian industries faced heavy losses. People suffered an acute shortage of food, influenza, epidemic, etc. In such a critical situation, a new leader, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, with his novel vision, came in India in January 1915. Gandhiji's heroic fight for the Indians in South Africa was well known. His novel method of agitation and protest based on truth and non-violence was known as Satyagraha. Without being aggressive, a Satyagraha could win the battle through non-violence. In 1916, Gandhiji travelled to Champaran in Bihar to inspire the peasants to struggle against oppressive indigo planters. In 1916, Gandhiji supported the peasants in Kheda district of Gujarat who were suffering from shortage of food due to crop failure and advised them not to pay revenue till their demand of its remission was met. In 1918, Gandhiji went to Ahmedabad to organize a Satyagrahi movement amongst cotton mill workers. Then came Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act in 1919 was passed through the Imperial Legislative Council in spite of opposition of the Indian members. Rowlatt Act gave the government enormous power to repress political activities. According to this act, the political prisoners could be detained in prison for 2 years without any trial. Gandhiji decided to try to oppose it with Satyagraha. 6th April 1919 was observed as Satyagraha Day, when people all over the country observed fast and hartal. It was the first countrywide agitation by Gandhiji. It marked the foundation of the non-cooperation movement. On 10th April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession. It provoked widespread attacks on banks, post office, and railway stations. Martial law was imposed and General Dyer took command. On 13th April 1919, a large crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, Punjab. Some people came here to protest against government's repressive measures, while some came to attend the annual Boishakhi fair. Many of them were unaware of the martial law that was imposed. General Dyer entered the area, blocked the exit point, and opened the fire on the crowd, killing hundreds. As the news spread, crowd took to the streets. There were strikes or hartals, clashes with the police, and attacks on government buildings. The government responded with force to end the movement by humiliating the terrorizing people. Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the streets, and do salam, that is called a salute, to all sahibs. People were beaten and villages were bombed. Rabindranath Tagore returned his knighthood in protest of this incident, that is called massacre. Mahatma Gandhi called off the movement when he saw spread of violence. Then Khilafat movement. During the Rowlatt Satyagraha, Mahatma Gandhi felt that need to launch a more wide movement in India. But he was sure that no such movement could be organized without bringing the Hindus and Muslims closer together. One way of doing this, he felt, that was to take up the Khilafat issues. The First World War had ended with the defeat of Ottoman Turkey. There was rumor that a Hearts Peace Treaty was going to be imposed on Ottoman Emperor, who was the spiritual head, Khalifa, of the Islamic world after the First World War. The Muslims of India decided to force Britain to change her Turkish policy. A Khilafat community was formed under the leadership of Maulana Azad, Hakim Ajmal Khan, and Hasrat Mohani. Muslim leaders Muhammad Ali and Saqat Ali began discussing with Mahatma Gandhi about the possibility of a united mass action on the issue. Gandhiji saw this as an opportunity of uniting Hindus and Mohammedans as would not arise in 100 years. The Congress passed the resolution in its Calcutta session in September 1920 to start a satyagraha on Khilafat issue. To gain maximum success, Mahatma Gandhi proposed a stage-by-stage strategy implementation for movement. Number 1. The movement had to begin with surrender of titles honors, and honorary posts by people. Number 2, planned to shun or boycott civil services, army, police, British courts and legislative assemblies, schools and colleges, and British goods. Number 3, the British goods were to be replaced by domestic goods or Swadeshi to promote the native cottage industries. In case of government suppression, civil disobedience movement will be launched. After a lot of debates, the non-cooperation movement was adopted by the Congress during the Nagpur Conference in December 1920. Under Mahatma Gandhi's leadership, non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in full swing. But there was differing or differentiation stands within the movement. In January 1921, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement started. Various social groups participated in the movement with their own specific aspirations. This movement started with middle-class participation in the cities. Students, teachers left government-controlled schools. Lawyers left courts. The effects of non-cooperation movement on the economic front were dramatic. People rejected foreign clothes and goods. As a result, the production of Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. This movement gradually slowed down for a variety of reasons, like expensive khadi clothes were not suitable for poor people. No alternative institutions were set up, so the teachers and students finally had to resume their studies and jobs in government schools. Lawyers joined back in government courts. So there started rebellion. In the countryside. From cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside. In Ayodhya, the peasants' movement developed under the leadership of Baba Ramchandra. This peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of beggar, and a social boycott of oppressive landlords. In many places, Nai Dhobi Bandhs were organized by panchayats to deny services to landlords of even barbers and washermen. In June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru began going around the villages of Ayodhya, talking to the villagers and trying to understand their problems. By October, the Ayodhya Kishan Sabha was set up. It was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and a few others. Within a month, over 300 branches had been set up in the villages around the region. As the movement spread, the houses of talukdars, that is Indian landlords, and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and grains hoards were taken over. Today, up to this, we will resume our lessons tomorrow.